Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bite Size Nutrition Podcast. I'm Jillian, and today we're going to talk about boredom eating. And I wanted to talk about boredom eating specifically because this is a topic that's come up with quite a few of my clients recently. And so I imagine this might be something that you deal with. And boredom eating, I think, is much more common than we think. Boredom eating is a form of emotional eating, even though we may not classify it that way. And we're going to talk about some insights from the work that I do with clients on overcoming boredom eating. And it's funny because I remember when I was growing up, my dad used to tell me that only boring people get bored. I remember being a kid and be like, Dad, I'm bored. And he would tell me this every single time. So, of course, I grew up feeling like being bored or just not doing anything was wrong. I felt like I had to be stimulated or productive or doing something all the time. I had this really strange, not strange, because I think it's really common, had this attachment to productivity. Even if I was being productive, like felt like I was being productive, but I wasn't actually doing anything. And I think it led to a lot of the multitasking that I have worked very hard to reduce. Because for so much of my life, if I felt bored, I needed a distraction, even if that distraction wasn't necessarily like the healthiest distraction. For a long time, it was food. I would go explore the kitchen, see what I could find. And interestingly, many of my coaching clients have similar backgrounds. Many of the clients I work with learned over time somewhere that boredom is to be avoided at all costs. Doing nothing means that you're being useless. Rest means that you're not being productive. Time should not be wasted. So it's no wonder that we all feel so freaking uncomfortable with boredom. But boredom is really just like any other uncomfortable emotion. It's like sadness, loneliness, frustration, stress. If we've never learned to process or express these emotions in healthy ways, of course we're going to struggle. Of course we're going to seek a distraction or an escape. And so I want you to think about for a second, what does boredom feel like to you? Think about being bored. What does that feel like? How do you define boredom? Do you have like a positive or a negative association with boredom? Interestingly, when we look in research, boredom is defined as a purposeless state. And so it makes sense that this is uncomfortable because humans love purpose and meaning. We love to feel like what we're doing has meaning to it. We love to feel like we are, like, this is why we like to feel productive, because we assume that if we're productive, we have purpose, even though how many of us have done just like busy work that doesn't actually like contribute to a purpose, right? And so when we're bored, we become aware of this feeling of purposelessness and it feels uncomfortable. So we try to escape it. And what better way to escape discomfort? Participating in a pleasurable activity like snacking. The problem is that boredom snacking doesn't usually align with the kind of person that we want to be. We don't see ourselves as someone that's like, I'm bored, so I go eat snacks. We see ourselves as someone that is, I'm bored and I can handle it, right? That's kind of what we want to be. And we find that boredom snacking doesn't tend to align with our health goals, our fitness goals, and that creates this sort of this struggle, right? Where we see ourselves as, hey, I don't want to be this person, but I keep doing this thing. And we can apply this to stress eating, emotional eating, whatever. And so I wanted to share some insights around what you can start thinking about or start practicing if you struggle with boredom eating. And specifically, this has been really top of mind for me lately because it's something that I'm specifically supporting a couple of coaching clients through. Of course, if you want help with this, I'm happy to coach you through as well. But let's get started. Let's dive into some of these insights. So the basics, make sure you're eating enough. And I know this can feel very vague, right? It's like, how do I know I'm eating enough? But one of the biggest triggers for boredom eating or any other kind of like emotional eating is hunger. Another trigger for boredom eating is restriction. So if we are physically hungry or if we are feeling deprived, we are more likely to seek out food when we are feeling an uncomfortable emotion. And specifically, you might be like, okay, well, how do I do that? So one of the things that I see over and over with the clients that I work with is that there's a struggle to connect with subtle signs of hunger. So many of the clients I work with have spent a long time dieting or macro tracking or in some way sort of putting external rules over their internal body cues. And so the work that we often start with when this comes up is mindful eating. So being able, like specifically, being able to identify physical hunger cues and learning how to differentiate physical hunger from taste hunger or emotional hunger. Because one of the most amazing things that you can do for yourself is be able to recognize, oh, I'm physically hungry and make the intentional choice to eat, or say, oh no, this is emotional hunger. Okay, cool. So I'm going to deal with my emotions. That gives you so much power over your behavior. And as I mentioned before, we do classify boredom eating as emotional hunger. There's an emotional need there that isn't being satisfied. And the interesting thing is, I bet when you eat, when you're bored, afterwards you're like, well, now I'm bored again. So maybe you go seek out more snacks, or instead of being bored, now maybe you're frustrated or you're guilty. And so one uncomfortable emotion ends up replacing another. And a big part of this is being able to recognize boredom and any other emotions that may be there. Because it may be boredom and frustration, it may be boredom and loneliness, it may be boredom and disappointment. And so, what can be really helpful is identifying our patterns. So, for example, something that often comes up with coaching clients is plans being canceled. So, they thought they were going to have like a purpose or something to do, and then plans are canceled. Now they're like, oh, well, now I'm bored. I have nothing to do. Or having an evening with no specific plans or no activities. Another thing that pops up a lot is having to do a quote unquote like boring task, whether it's a task at work or paperwork or taxes, and being home alone are all kind of common triggers that pop up. And so for you, you can start identifying, well, what are my patterns? And this can give you an understanding of, oh, I kind of understand myself a little bit better now. So I can kind of predict when these things are going to happen. And that allows you to work with your patterns instead of against them. We tend to judge ourselves a lot for these things. And that's really unhelpful because that judgment usually leads to, well, I'll just do better next time, or like, I just need to stop doing this. And so we actually need to be, all right, I got interrupted there by a package for my neighbor. So I'm going to try to pick back up where I left off. I'm going to do my best here. So we were talking about working with your patterns instead of against them. And often what happens is we tend to be kind of harsh on ourselves and we tell ourselves, I'm not going to do this again. Like, I shouldn't do this. And we don't actually give ourselves the kindness and the compassion to say, hey, I want to support myself through this. This is something really challenging. So we kind of end up stuck in the same patterns because we're just telling ourselves to do better. And so, one of the things that is really helpful is to consider, well, what's my plan? What do I want to do next time I feel bored? And this isn't about distracting yourself with something mindless. It's not like, oh, I'm bored, so I'm going to pull out TikTok. It's about making mindful choices about how you want to spend your time. So, thinking, hey, when I'm bored, what actually will recharge me? What might help me disconnect from the day? What is supportive for me? Whether that is reading a comic book, which is kind of cool, like graphic novels, comic books are kind of cool, or whether that is, hey, there's this project that I've been really wanting to do at home that I haven't gotten myself into. It could also be, hey, I need to take a nap. I need to do nothing, stare at the ceiling, close my eyes for a little while. This is where one of the things that I encourage clients to do is actually just brainstorm a list of, hey, when you're bored, what actually feels supportive for you? What feels helpful? I think one of the things that we can keep in mind is if it is for something like paperwork, how do we pair something enjoyable with a boring task? So that can be looking at, well, do I put on music or can I listen to a podcast while I'm doing this boring task so I can actually support myself through it? And these mindful choices about how you want to spend your time can be really empowering rather than simply telling ourselves, well, I'm just going to try harder and grit it out and not eat. And I also want to encourage you to get curious about what you eat when you're bored, because this can give you a lot of insight into whether it is simply boredom eating or whether there is some restriction at play here. Do you tend to grab or crave food when you're bored that you normally don't allow yourself on a regular basis? Is it food that's somehow deemed exciting, or is it like whatever I have laying around, I will grab? One of the practices that I will often work on with clients is normalizing food, because we find that there do tend to be some sneaky food rules where, I'm allowed to eat this, but only in this amount, or, I shouldn't eat this unless this. And so it's really common to see that the foods that we turn to when we're bored are foods that we don't normally give ourselves free rein to enjoy. And so part of the work of overcoming boredom eating or emotional eating or any kind of like stress eating, anything like that, is including those foods in your meals and snacks on a regular basis, because we want to normalize, make it feel easy for you to be calm and neutral around that food. And so I want to mention kind of the last thing here before I do a little bit of a recap. My dad was wrong. It is okay to be bored. It is okay to rest and be still and not do anything in particular. And it's also okay to involve yourself in activities as like, oh, I'm feeling bored. I want to do this thing that actually fills me up, that actually interests me. And we can experiment with it. The guilt and shame that we put on ourselves for boredom or for not being productive is actually part of the problem. We are so incredibly overstimulated all the time. And it feels like everyone else out there is doing like these 100-step morning routines and reading 12 books a week and also making sourdough from scratch while also always having their nails done and looking perfect. And it is totally okay to be purposeless for an afternoon. That doesn't mean your life is purposeless. And if you do feel like, hey, I kind of feel like my life doesn't have a lot of meaning or purpose, I would encourage you to go back and listen to, I think it's episode 91 or 92 on values, because values can be a great way to find your direction again. And so here's your recap. Boredom eating is emotional eating, and overcoming emotional eating means dealing with our emotions in healthier ways. If you're feeling hungry or deprived, that can drive boredom eating patterns. If you try to work against yourself or say, I'm just going to try harder next time, it is very unlikely you're going to break the pattern. What you can do is be curious about your patterns, be kind to yourself and supportive towards yourself, and explore what you do want to do when you feel bored instead of eat or even alongside eating. And I will finish with this, is it's not just about filling the time to fill it, but exploring our patterns of boredom eating can make us realize that we do want more meaning or connection or creativity or rest in our lives. And that is something that we can work towards. If you would like help overcoming boredom eating, emotional eating, any other struggles related to food, in coaching, I will take you through 3 steps. First, we are going to identify the real issues you are experiencing and what is driving them. 2, we're going to help you develop new skills and ways of being with food. And 3, we are going to help you align your actions and the things that you do and participate in a day-to-day basis. We're going to align that with your values and the kind of person you want to be. If you would like to inquire about coaching, there is a link in the show notes. Click the link, send me just a really quick message to let me know you're interested, and I will reach out within 24 hours to set up a free Zoom call for us to get to know each other and make sure that I am the right coach for you. So that is what I have for you today. If you found this helpful, go ahead and make sure to follow the podcast, share it with someone that you think might find this helpful, and I will see you again next time.